welcome back to Towers Take Live, brought to you by Marco's Pizza, right here on Facebook. What's going on? We are 9 days away from Georgia's opening game against Austin Peay, and more importantly, the 2018 season. I know I'm excited about that. I'm sure you're excited about that. Marco's Pizza is excited about that. They're so excited, they're going to make the primo play of the day and get you two medium, two-topping pizzas with a great everyday value of $6.99 each. Order yours today at marcos.com. And if you hang out with me or Brandon or any of us guys at Dog Nation, you know about that great deal they have there. They ought to just call it the Dog Nation deal, but it's a primo play of the day. Be sure and take advantage of that. And we so thank Marco's Pizza and all the sponsors of Dog Nation. We appreciate it. And, a lot to talk about. We're 9 days out from the opening game. The main thing to talk about, speaking of season kickoff, Dog Nation is having their season kickoff tonight, this afternoon, this evening, really, 6 o'clock, over in Cumming at the Kroger Bethelview. I'll be there. Mike Griffith will be there. Jeff Sentell will be there. Brandon Adams will, of course, be there. Everybody will be there from Dog Nation, and we look forward to coming out there. We're going to hang out with you, talk a little bit. The great thing about the Crowbar there at Kroger, they sell beer, so that's my favorite thing about this whole event. And we'll be hanging out just to talk to you. We'll do a panel discussion. Brandon will have his usual plans and do some cool stuff with you, and there'll be just all kinds of fun to be had. So if you're anywhere around there, even if you're not around there, hey, I'm still in Athens. So get out of my way on the highways because I'm going to be coming to attend that event. It's been a busy day for me already. Had a meeting this morning with B.J. Sweeney of Dog Nation, and also I spoke to the Athens JCs today at a local Athens restaurant. So many thanks to Joey Tucker, who invites me every year to that fine group's event in Athens, and the president there right now is a guy named Greg Siebert, and I want to thank them for their hospitality and trust in me to kind of tell them my thoughts every season about what's going to happen. We were laughing about what we probably were saying this time last year. I know I was probably in there talking a lot about Jacob Eason. That's the funny thing about football in general. Nobody was really talking. We were talking about Jake Fromm, but we weren't talking about what kind of an impact he was going to have on the 2017 season. And I'd say at the end of the day, he ended up having a pretty significant impact on last season, which segues nicely into probably the main topic of talk, out of Athens this week is just the quarterback depth chart. Hard to say sometimes. Easier to write. I don't think anybody who listens to us or has paid close attention is surprised to hear that. I mean, Kirby doesn't like talking about depth charts. The funny thing he always says, we don't have a depth chart. Y'all have a depth chart, except when you go out there to practice every day. Give me the ones, give me the twos, So they have a depth chart, and they certainly know that Jake Fromm is going to be, the starting quarterback. That's never really been a question. And the only question, which remains an intriguing one, is exactly how they plan to get Justin Fields in the game. I mean, there's no question Justin Fields is going to have to play, and they got to get him ready to play, and they'll have a plan for him to play. So the interest for me is if that's going to be a pure T rotation, or if it'll be kind of like Kirby enumerated, that he's the second-string quarterback, and Jake Fromm is the first-string quarterback. So Jake Fromm goes every time the first-team offense goes out there, and the outcome is, I guess, in doubt, you would say, or not safely in hand, and then the backup would go in. I think they'll do a little more than that. I mean, obviously, they need to get Justin Fields ready to play, and I think Austin Peay, being the season opener, gives them a good opportunity to get him out there and get his feet wet, as people like to say. I don't know why they say that, but they say it. Go in there and get his feet wet. I don't know, you can say he gets his hair wet. get his eyes wet. All of that will be interesting to see with Justin Fields. But I definitely think quarterback is the least of Georgia's issues. There are a lot of issues on Georgia's team. I don't think running back is one either. I guess since we last spoke, Zamir White went down with the injury in camp, scrimmage last weekend at Sanford Stadium. There was, a lot of sort of hullabaloo and scuttlebutt about that afterward. I heard from a lot of McGill Society types who wondered quite openly, well, what in the heck is he doing on punt coverage? But as Kirby very vociferously said, they use all their best players on special teams, and it's true. Actually, we talked to DeAndre Swift this week, and just to make sure, I asked him, "You still on punt team?" As Kirby had said he was, and he said, "Yep, still am." And last year, Sony Michel, Lorenzo Carter, DeAndre Swift were part of that punt team, and that's one of the reasons that Georgia had such good punt coverage. So I really don't call that into question. Now, I do question a little bit that Zamir White is out there, so soon after knee surgery. I think that's asking a lot. I understand he's cleared to play. You're cleared to play. You're cleared to play. He's trying to get on the bus and all that kind of stuff. And, it was, we're told it was a non-contact injury. I didn't get to see it. I know he did lock up with Mark Webb, according to accounts of people who were there. Whether there was any actual contact or anything, I don't know. But, he ended up on the ground with a left knee injury, and he's out. So that leaves Georgia only with DeAndre Swift, Elijah Holyfield, Brian Herrien, and the electric James Cook, who we've written a lot about. I hope you got a chance to read Mike Griffith's latest piece at Dog Nation about him. No question he's created a lot of buzz. But, Elijah Holyfield's created a lot of buzz, too. And I don't really doubt that Elijah Holyfield's going to play a lot. If not start in this first game, I could see Dale McGee rewarding him with a start. It's Dale McGee's call, and I'm going to try to get to your comments here. Just give me a second. I could see Elijah Holyfield starting. He's had a great camp, y'all, and not only has Elijah Holyfield had a great camp, but kind of the ultimate statement for me, for a running back is, he stayed in there. Elijah Holyfield, he always gets a lot of carries, as we've seen from G-Day games past and, in scrimmages and that. He is a tough nut, and he takes a lot of the tough carries in practice and that kind of stuff, and he manages to stay healthy. I expect a big year out of Elijah Holyfield, and I think what makes the Zamir White injury somewhat easy to take is Elijah Holyfield's presence, because I think they're very similar. Now, all accounts, I get it. Zeus was #1 running back in the country, and that's where I'm disappointed more than anything. It's just the intrigue of seeing what he can do on this level. But you can never be sure. Elijah Holyfield, we've seen enough of to know that he should be able to do a lot. So I think him and DeAndre Swift are probably going to be your primary backs. And they don't like being characterized as Mr. Inside or Mr. Outside necessarily, but I think that's by and large going to be their specialty. And James Cook, little James, is some of those guys call him out there. Some of those big old giant linemen. They are going to be. He's going to be exciting to watch. He wears number 6, and can really move with the football and catch the football well. And out of the backfield, and just does a really, really good job of that. So I look forward to seeing him. Getting your comments here, y'all. Troy Sadowski is here. We always like it when Troy's here, former Georgia tight end, All-American. One of the best tight ends, Troy, in Georgia history. I listed you in that top 10 of all time. And he definitely was, and he realizes the importance of being able to block. I don't know whether tight ends are going to catch more balls or what have you. That's what everybody wants to know, if because of Jim Chaney, if they're going to catch more balls. We'll have to see. Hello, Vicki Smith, Tony Jackson, Bill Krug is here. Hey, Bill, is that the former defensive back? Get a lot of Letterman on here, don't we? Jason Willoughby is here, start of a dynasty. Maybe that could be. I mean, it really could. I picked them to go 12-0 this year, and I'm not. I promise, I'm not just trying to put heat on Kirby. I think they have the better personnel in all 12 of their regular season games. Now, the best team doesn't always win, as everybody can tell you. But I do think that they have a chance to be really, really good. Willie Gray Jr. says, "Do you believe this is the best starting O-line ever?" Well, I don't know about ever. There's been great Georgia lines. I mean, going back to, some probably in the 40s and 50s, and definitely, the 66 and 68 team had some really good lines, and that 80 team must have been all right. They made some holes for Herschel. But I definitely, hey, Nick Simmons, what's up with you? I definitely think Georgia's O-line is very, very special, and one of the reasons I think Georgia's going to do good this year. I mean, both Elijah and there's big Andrew Thomas playing left tackle. Both Elijah and DeAndre Swift talk about they thought how well the line was playing, and that they opened some really big holes for them. And Kirby's tried to downplay, but there's been some pretty big runs in Georgia's scrimmages from Georgia's running backs. And think about scrimmages. That might mean the defense isn't doing a very good job, but I think it speaks a lot to that O-line, and you got the Great Wall of Athens there in front of these running backs. And it sounds like the transition of Andrew Thomas from right tackle to left tackle has gone well. As well, probably less talked about is the transition of Isaiah Wilson into the right tackle position left behind by Andrew Thomas. I mean, he's been largely an immovable object, as his 6'7", 345-pound frame would suggest, at that right tackle position. So I do think it's going to be one of Georgia's best lines in years. And if it's possible to lose a left tackle in the first round of the New England Patriots, as Georgia did with Isaac Wynn, and improve Isaiah Wynn, that is pretty incredible. Stephanie Bishop wants to know, is Fromm Field starting? Jake Fromm is starting. Won't even be close. And I don't mean that as any kind of diss to Justin Fields. I mean, I just think 900 snaps is 900 snaps in live games. And Justin Fields will work him in there, and if he's going to win the job from Jake Fromm, it'll be by what he does in actual games this fall and nothing else. It's not going to be by anything that happens in camp. Most five-star offensive linemen in Georgia history, most 5 stars in Georgia history, period. They didn't always have stars, but Georgia has 21 of them on the roster right now, and based on recruiting, if it stays like it is, that'll go up to 25 next year when you're losing Terry Godwin, but adding those other 4 guys, 5 guys in the 2019 class. So it's going to be a fun thing to watch. I mean, that's my intrigue heading into the first game, is how will they deploy Justin Fields along with Jake Fromm, and how will that mix up in the offense? So how much different will it be? Kirby says it won't be any different, and we know now that the third-string quarterback is Matthew Downing, I think his name is, the kid from Alpharetta. And, think about third-string quarterbacks. You hope he's a good one, and you hope you don't see him. We are going to go a little bit quicker tonight. I think I need to get out of here pretty soon to get to Cummings, so go ahead and get me your questions in real quick. Lastly, I would say out of this team, what I think is the biggest weakness at this point, I would probably say secondary. And, I've gone back and forth between D-line and linebackers and secondary, and, the fact that, you're debating the 3 topics, which one does Georgia need to show the most improvement in? That's a tough thing, but I've kind of gotten comfortable with Georgia's D-line. Hello, Stephen Weeks. Good to see you, brother. I've kind of gotten comfortable with Georgia's D-line, and I think Jay Hayes and the development there of some of the players behind have helped the depth, and that's better. Linebacker is really intriguing for me from the standpoint of we're seeing mostly Tate Crowder and Natrez Patrick in the number 1 position. They're completely different than what you have with Roquan Smith and Reggie Carter in most games last year. So they're going to, yes, Monty Moon. I am concerned about the linebackers, but it's what am I most concerned about? And I think secondary at this point, And I say that because I think that's the hardest position in college football, besides quarterback, to make the transition from high school to secondary. You can't just line up and cover somebody man-to-man every down, or you can't just line up in the middle of the field and be a center fielder and use your speed and instincts to get around the field. You've got to be very, very disciplined. Offenses are very sophisticated, and they'll be coming after you, y'all. And with DeAndre Baker at one cornerback, and it looks like, I mean, this week, Eric Stokes is your guy at the other cornerback. I think the Tyreek McGee injury is more serious than a lot of people give credit to. And I just think that's a position of concern. Who's going to play at star? We've heard almost nothing about D'Angelo Gibbs here lately. But Georgia has a lot of candidates. They have really good players there, but they face two really good quarterbacks in the first month of the season, and that's a big learning curve for those guys just coming from high school, or even the redshirt freshmen that are playing just for the first time. So there is that's probably my biggest concern. Special teams you're going to have to keep an eye on. I think kicking is in a good place with Hot Rod, Rodrigo Blankenship, but punting is a big question. I think Jake Camarda and the Stratton kid who transferred in have done pretty well, but they've been inconsistent. Both of them had shanks in this past week's scrimmage, and that was tough. Austin Springer has a good question. He wants to know, do you see Quay or Tyndall starting at some point this season? I do not see him starting ever this season, provided there's not any injury, but I see both those guys playing eventually, and Kirby talked to them about them the other day. That's another position that's very difficult to come in as a freshman and play right away. There's just too much reading and reacting to do. Those guys are a lot bigger on the inside at this level and all that kind of stuff. Charles Felder asked about talk about D-Rob and the receivers. D-Rob is doing well. What I've heard was he really started really good out the gate, but one thing that's been evident is the training at Georgia under Kirby Smart is a little bit more intense than the training he was getting out of Cal Berkeley, and that he might have hit a wall a little bit there for a couple of days in terms of all the running and hitting and everything they do. Georgia has tapered that back this last week and a half, and hopefully he'll get his legs back under him and be able to show us what he's all about. But it may be mid-season before we see the true blue D-Rob. I think Terry Godwin, who's back now, Riley Ridley, McCole Hardman. I expect big things out of Akil Crumpton. I've kind of mentioned him as one of my under-the-radar guys. Full roster wants to know if I see a position switch for Nate McBride. I wouldn't be surprised if they give him a look back in the secondary, but I would imagine he is, going to keep working at that linebacker position. And he does a lot on special teams, but for whatever reason, he hasn't been able to move up further. Chad Daniels talking about those quarterbacks early in the season in the secondary. Drew Lock is as well. And Missouri is going to be a tough one. So that's my quick 2 cents worth. Please come to Cumming tonight to the Kroger Bethelview out there for the Dog Nation season kickoff. We're going to be there. Everybody's going to be there, and I can answer all your questions. I'd love to meet you guys personally, shake your hand, buy you a beer, as they say, all that kind of stuff, and we're going to have some cool stuff planned while we're over there, always some cool giveaways and that kind of stuff. So we'll go into more detail. Next week we should be in our normal time for every week. I spoke to the Athens JCs today in a long-standing event that I do every preseason, and that was a conflict today, but we should be at noon every Thursday going forward. Again, Marcos, make the primo play of the day and get 2 medium, 2 topping pizzas for the everyday low price of $6.99. Go to Marcos.com. They'll send you a pizza, and they'll get it there in a flash. Thank you to them for sponsoring Towers Take Live here on Facebook. I will see you on Dog Nation, and I'll see you at the Dog Nation season kickoff tonight and coming. Bye, y'all.